At this very moment, in a world of heroes wielding swords and magic, Heroes Continent has a large-scale or massive war taking place due to the Demon Queen launching an all-out war against all the races. With the help of the Demon Queen's oppressive strength, the Demon Queen's army is like a hot knife through butter in their attacks, and the empires of the various races fall into ruin, one after the other. Very quickly, only the human race remains steadfast in their resistance. Still, alas, because of the internal strife and rebellions amongst the humans, their empire collapses along with their defenses as they surrender. This makes Elizabeth dubbed as the strongest demon queen in history and secures her position as the only ruler of the world. At the human empire, Barrow Smith asks Elizabeth not to think she has won the battle alone, as in the future she will definitely be defeated completely by their hero. Just like in the legends, the human empire prince, Wise Malfoy, Barrow's student, kicks Barrow and tells him to get things straight as Her Majesty, Elizabeth, isn't asking for his opinion but giving him an order. Barrow tells Wise Malfoy that he's a patricide-committing, enemy-welcoming traitor of the human race, as he even cultivated him as if he were the prophesied hero in vain. Malfoy tells him he's full of nonsense and decides to send him to his dead father since he misses his useless father so much. Queen Elizabeth commands Wise Malfoy to stay put as he is about to strike Barrow after transforming. She asks Barrow to explain what he meant when he said he would stand by her side in the future, which will end in the Queen's defeat. She demands an explanation for his words and informs him that she has thousands of different ways to make him suffer a fate worse than death. Barrow informs Queen Elizabeth about the prophecy that states when the prophesied hero pulls out the holy sword, it will mark the end of the demon race's reign. Barrow tells Queen Elizabeth he will never reveal the location of the holy sword embedded in the stone platform in the main hall, as he won't betray the human race. Queen Elizabeth walks toward the holy sword and questions how the legend speaks of the hero receiving the right to challenge the queen because he pulls out the sword. Queen Elizabeth tells them she looks forward to the hero's arrival. The first, second, third, and fourth years under Elizabeth's reign passed, and in the fifth year, discussions spread about how all past practices and inequalities among the races were abolished. Everyone was able to live on equal standing without disputes, enjoying peace and harmony. As a result, Heroes Continent began thriving and flourishing rapidly. Meanwhile, fearing that this rare peace might be destroyed, an anti-hero alliance emerged, resolutely rejecting the arrival of the prophesied hero. In the Demon Empire, the former Human Empire gathers all the races and inquires about any news regarding the prophesied hero. Twilia, the Chancellor of the Elf race, informs Elizabeth that the Elf race has mobilized all their tree insects to search, but has not found any information about the prophesied hero. Heimerdinger, the Chancellor of the Dwarf race, tells her that while the dwarves are not very skilled at gathering information, their compiled data from weapon stores reveals no suspicious activity. Aristotle, the Chancellor of the human race, expresses his belief that the prophesied hero's attempt to stand against them will be in vain and that there is no need for concern. Jim, Chancellor of the demon race, tells Aristotle that he might not know since he joined them, but Elizabeth is not worried about the prophesied hero. Instead, she wants him to come so she can act in response to the prophecy. Elizabeth has gathered all sorts of ancient books on magic and war tactics to prepare, as she whispers to him. Mogul, Chancellor of the Beastman race, whispers that their queen, Elizabeth, could annihilate Heroes Continent in an instant if she wills it. Twilia calls Barrow an idiot, blaming him for the current problems and expressing how fortunate they are to have Elizabeth ruling them. She suggests they should let the prophesied hero die. Just then, Barrow Smith, formerly the High Priest of the human race and now the president of the Demon Queen fan club of the Anti-Prophesied Hero Association, leads their protest against the hero, urging support for the reign of Her Majesty. Elizabeth uses her power to lift Barrow and demands he explain himself, asking where the prophesied hero is. Barrow tells her that the prophecy doesn't have to be accurate, using her as an example of how the target might exceed the prophecy's expectations. Wise Malfoy agrees, stating that it would be a grave offense to apply the prophecy to Elizabeth, as their queen need not take offense in the slightest. He informs her that he has new findings on the matter. Elizabeth slaps him and tells him to get lost, to which he responds that he understands. Elizabeth calls them a bunch of trash and unleashes a powerful attack from her grip. She declares that she has reached the peak of the world, holding ultimate power. She says she is waiting for the legendary hero to challenge her. intending to become his stepping stone to fame. She walks toward the holy sword, reflecting on her journey. She recalls how she studied all the ancient magic books of the hero continent, enduring countless hardships. In her quest for power, she created the Doomsday Magic, all in preparation for the legendary hero's challenge. Frustrated, she questions where the prophesied hero is, as he has yet to appear. Determined, she decides to seek out the prophesied hero herself since he isn't coming to her. Her decision shocks the different races, who beg her not to go through with it. They fear the consequences of her actions and the chaos that might ensue. Elizabeth grasps the holy sword, causing havoc in the surroundings due to the combined power of her and the sword. The races nearby shield themselves from the intense energy radiating from her. Twilia, watching in awe and fear, questions whether Queen Elizabeth will pull out the holy sword, knowing the immense power it holds and the potential disaster it could bring. In a sudden move, Elizabeth pulls out the holy sword and boldly asks who said only the legendary hero could do so. With the power of the holy sword, she uses her inner vision to locate the hiding place of the prophesied hero. Determined, she uses her abyss magic, designed for forced teleportation. As she prepares to leave, wise Malfoy pleads with Elizabeth to let him continue serving by her side. Ignoring his pleas, she activates her magic and teleports away to confront the hero directly. In the newbie village, the legendary hero, Leping, is seen farming, content, and happy as he enjoys the peacefulness. As he works, he recalls his past, leading to a flashback. The scene shifts to a bus, where Leping, an ordinary office worker, is reflecting on his dull life. He never found interest in playing games or watching anime. The only thing he found pleasure in was watching his favorite short videos on his phone on his way home. On his way home, Leping is watching his favorite short video as usual. The video teaches the correct way of fertilizing by starting with picking sour bamboo shoots, an essential part of making luisiphon. As he watches, he feels a pang of envy, wishing he could live such a simple, fulfilling life. Suddenly, he finds himself transported to the newbie village. He reflects on how he slowly learned the basic survival skills in the newbie village under the guidance of the newbie systems, as he actually doesn't know anything about the different races at all. As he questions if this peaceful, pastoral life is what he always wanted, he realizes how fulfilling it feels. He notices that his body is much healthier than when he was working in his old job, enjoying the physical activity and fresh air of his new life. He remembers how the newbie system asks him to start his adventure, because he has finished the newbie training and met all the conditions to leave the newbie village. He questions if it's really necessary to go, as he enjoys staying in the village. But the system informs him that if he leaves, he will meet many different people in the world, learn various sword and magic skills from them, become a legendary hero, and have the chance to defeat the Demon King. So, the system urges him to start his adventure. Leping tells the system that he does not want to kill the Demon King and asks if he can simply continue living in the village, as he enjoys his peaceful life there and is not eager for adventure. The system responds that this is not an option. It explains that killing the Demon King is a crucial part of his mission and then urges him to start his adventure and embrace the journey ahead. Leping reflects on how the system keeps urging him to leave the village and start an adventure. He feels that the system is only nagging and decides to ignore its messages about killing the Demon King. He wants to continue living his peaceful life forever in the village. The newbie village is protected by a special time barrier that hides it for safety, and within this barrier, time moves differently. There are more than 24 hours in a day. This extra time lets him enjoy activities he loves, such as farming, hunting, foraging, and meditating. Despite being aware that sword and magic skills might be important for an adventure, he feels they are not necessary for him right now since he doesn't plan to leave the village. He also reflects on how he slowly built his ideal pastoral home from scratch by exchanging points for newbie tasks. Then one day, the system suddenly crashes and disappears. Before it vanishes, it reveals how the world is full of sword and magic, but he only knows how to farm. Ignoring its suggestions completely, he questions how he could be a legendary hero and hopes he will die soon at the hands of the Demon King. Back in the present, Leping feels hungry after a busy day of farming and decides to prepare a meal. He notices that the firewood is running low and remembers that he forgot to bring axe Da Zhuang back from the woods when he went out to chop wood in the morning. Meanwhile, the clouds are in turmoil due to Elizabeth's arrival at the newbie village. and she feels satisfied seeing Leping. Misinterpreting the chaotic clouds, Leping wonders why it's suddenly going to rain heavily. He thinks about the clothes and dried fish he spread outside and rushes to pack them up. Leping feels relieved because he quickly packs his dried fish and sausage before they go bad. Just then, his electronic pet dog, Wang Kai, comes over and starts barking. Wang Kai is trying to tell Leping that Elizabeth is here. However, Leping doesn't get what Wang Kai is trying to say. He thinks Wang Kai is just being noisy and tells him to stop barking and go inside because it looks like it's going to rain soon. Leping sees Elizabeth in the sky with her wings spread wide. Curious and confused, he asks Wang Kai what it is, which makes Elizabeth angry. She calls him dull and asks how he dares to call her a thing. Leping quickly apologizes, explaining that he didn't see clearly that it was a person. He then asks why someone else had to join them, questioning if the newbie village isn't supposed to be safe. Elizabeth decides to test Leping first by throwing a holy sword at him. Leping, not understanding what she's saying, is caught off guard. He's shocked when he suddenly feels something fly into his hand and realizes it's the holy sword Elizabeth just threw. Elizabeth questions what's going on after seeing how low Leping's abilities are while he's holding the sword. She knows the holy sword Alpha can't be wrong in recognizing a worthy person and wonders if Leping is hiding his true power. She introduces herself as the strongest demon queen in history and decides to completely obliterate him today. She then activates her abyss magic, ready to attack. Leping becomes frightened and questions why Elizabeth is here, noting that he hasn't left the village. He tells Wang Kai to avoid provoking her, fearing the worst. As he runs into the house, he starts to piece things together. He remembers that the system had warned him that meeting the demon queen was unavoidable, even if he stayed within the newbie village. Reflecting on his experiences, he realizes he has been a complete novice up until now. With the final boss standing before him, he feels overwhelmed and wonders what options he has, other than resigning himself to his fate. Leping decides to accept his fate with a sense of contentment. He feels no regret, knowing he had happy times in the newbie village. In the end, he resolves to return to his starting point and face whatever comes next. He looks at Elizabeth one last time and then closes the door to his home. Elizabeth, puzzled, wonders what Leping meant by looking at her that way. She imagines him telling her to come at him with everything she has. Elizabeth's imagination makes her angry, and she calls Leping an arrogant bastard. In her fury, she demands that he die and unleashes a powerful attack on the house. Meanwhile, Wang Kai, the electronic dog, who is in battle mode, finishes its calculations and fires its own attack at Elizabeth. The two attacks collide, creating a dramatic clash. Wang Kai woofs outside the house, causing Elizabeth to think that Leping, the hero from the legend, is just as arrogant as she expected. She wonders if he relies on advanced magical tools with awakened sentience. Believing that everything is inferior to her, she tries to activate her apocalyptic magic. However, she quickly loses interest in probing him further and decides to end it by activating her earth recasting spell. Meanwhile, Wang Kai completes its calculations and clicks the power, sending a quantum mechanics black hole into the sky. Elizabeth feels it's useless and decides to vanish, taking the land with her. But a quantum mechanical black hole disrupts her apocalyptic magic, causing it to crack. Elizabeth is surprised to see her magic breaking and wonders what Leping did inside the house to cause this. Leping, who is waiting for death, tells Elizabeth to come to him as he lies on his bed, prepared for what is to come. Elizabeth, unable to leave the newbie village, comes down to the land, causing Wang Kai to keep woofing seriously. Elizabeth laughs when she sees Wang Kai woofing and realizes she underestimated Leling in the end. As she transforms into her demon form, Elizabeth warns Wang Kai not to get too full of himself, explaining that she has only been using 30% of her power so far. She calls Wang Kai an imprudent scoundrel and decides to show him what true terror looks like. With an evil laugh, she unleashes her attack on Wang Kai. An hour later, Leping, who has been lying on his bed waiting for death and has fallen asleep, wakes up. He wonders if he is dead and questions if he is not in his room. Leping, feeling uneasy about the quiet environment, decides to go outside, thinking the demon queen might be waiting for him like a maniac. He carefully opens the door and is surprised to see Elizabeth standing there with Wang Kai, who has been destroyed by her, in her hand. Elizabeth, noticing Leping, apologizes and tells him she has also destroyed the magic tools he was proud of. Despite the damage, Leping stays calm. He tells Elizabeth it's okay and asks if they can sit down and talk. Elizabeth tells Leping that they will sit down to talk after she kills him. Her body starts to shake as she questions if being pushed to her limit is the end that was foretold for her. She collapses, and Leping rushes to her, asking if she is okay while helping her sit on the floor. Elizabeth dissipates her demon form, leaving her naked, which makes Leping question what she is doing and is shocked to see her nakedness. Elizabeth, now clothed and with handcuffs on her wrists, wakes up and feels she has suffered a humiliating defeat. She questions if Leping decided to show his power to the world by imprisoning her instead of taking the opportunity to kill her. She tries to release herself but fails. She reflects on how she has never seen this type of handcuff before, which is a legendary class artifact, and questions the amount of power Leping is holding back. Elizabeth sees a few strange items in Leping's room and guesses they are definitely not simple. She realizes she has underestimated Leping, thinking he is much more wicked than she had imagined. When Leping comes in with some food and finds her awake, Elizabeth tells him not to expect her to beg for mercy if he wants to kill her. Leping acknowledges how truly frightening Elizabeth is but later realizes that this is his only chance to survive and decides he must seize the opportunity. He asks her if they can talk and explains that he handcuffed her as a precaution due to how terrifying she is and quickly clarifies that he means how formidable she is, as he believes there must have been a misunderstanding between them, and informs her he will unlock the handcuffs right away for them to talk. Elizabeth imagines Leping mockingly apologizing to her, suggesting that there must have been a misunderstanding from the beginning for her to think she was formidable enough to challenge him and inform him she was absolutely wrong and must fulfill his demands if she wants to live. After her imagination runs its course, she asks Leping if he is threatening her, the Demon Queen, while he's unlocking the handcuff. Leping informs Elizabeth that he has unlocked the handcuffs to show he has no ill intentions. He says they should have the conversation they promised. Elizabeth responds by saying her current situation is very unfavorable to her. She explains that a strong person knows when to be flexible and when to stand firm. While she agrees to endure the situation for now, she warns him that he will regret his arrogance in the future. Leping tells Elizabeth to rest and starts thinking how everyone is curious about why he didn't kill the Demon Queen while she was unconscious. He reflects on how, in the world of sword and magic, it's normal for the Demon Queen to have a resurrection skill. While killing chickens and fish for soup is one thing, he believes he cannot bring himself to kill a human, even if she's a Demon Queen. He concludes that resolving the conflict between the Demon Queen and the hero does not require killing or fighting. Instead, he thinks that if he can show he means no harm and become her friend, he can continue to live happily and laugh while leaving the room, but Elizabeth thinks he is mocking her. Leping picks up Wankai, who he thinks has become quite a mess, on his way out of the room so Elizabeth can rest. Queen Elizabeth asks Leping if Wankai is his most powerful magic tool. He explains that Wankai is merely a small tool he crafted out of boredom while living in the newbie village. He adds that he only developed Wankai quite recently. Elizabeth sneers at Leping, thinking to herself that it's his turn to make a mistake. She knows she can secretly use her abyss magic, which gives her endless power, to recover quickly now that he has unlocked the handcuffs. Without his most powerful magic tool, it's like he's lost his right arm. The balance of power has tipped towards her, and she feels more confident knowing she now has the advantage. Elizabeth apologizes to Leping for breaking his creation, Wankai. He tells her not to worry, explaining that the memory card is still inside the broken electronic dog as he removes it. Elizabeth thinks this is the perfect time to eliminate him with her world-destroying magic, but she is suddenly surprised. Leping opens a wall panel revealing many electronic dog bodies without memory cards. He tells her he can easily repair Wankai since he made plenty of spare bodies in preparation, and reassures her that there's no need to worry. Leping picks up one of the spare electronic dog bodies and carefully puts the memory card into it. As he does this, he tells Elizabeth how he enjoys having a companion like Wankai. He explains that, although it's fun to have the electronic dog around, they can be a bit naughty at times. That's why he only activates one at a time when he's at home, so he can manage their behavior and still enjoy their company. Elizabeth, in disbelief that Leping could develop such a thing, imagines him looking at her with scary eyes while holding the woofing electronic dog. Suddenly, he smiles at her, breaking her unsettling thoughts. Curious, she asks him what he's smiling about. Leping tells her he made some food, regular meat porridge, and dumplings, to warm her up since she had fainted earlier. He offers the meal to her with a gentle expression. Elizabeth tells him that she has reached a transcendent state and doesn't need food, saying only the weak need to eat. Leping ponders to himself how sharing delicious food might help resolve the conflict between them. He asks her to have some, explaining that he made the meal from vegetables and grains he grew himself, assuring her that everything is natural. Meanwhile, as he explains, the tempting aroma of the food reaches Elizabeth. She decides to give it a try. Leping, confident in his cooking, ponders whether the Demon Queen, with her high status, will appreciate something as humble as a meal from the newbie village. He watches her closely, hoping his simple, homemade food will bridge the gap between them. Elizabeth savors every bite of the meat, feeling its rich magical energy. She marvels at how such a delicious treat exists in the world. The food is so incredibly good that she can barely bring herself to swallow the last bite, enjoying the flavors and the magical essence to the fullest. After eating the entire meal, Elizabeth suddenly feels a burning sensation in her lungs and stomach from the food's spiciness. She asks Leping what he put in the food. Leping is surprised to realize that he had added a bit of chili to match his own taste. He then wonders if Elizabeth, the Demon Queen, can't handle spicy food, given her reaction. Elizabeth thinks that Leping does not have good intentions. She sees that he has locked her up for research experiments, just as she suspected. Leping serves Elizabeth century egg and lean pork congee, telling her it will help clear heat and reduce fire. Elizabeth feels as if Leping is playing a trick on her, like he's giving her poison in one hand while offering the antidote in the other. Feeling uncomfortable from the spiciness, she decides to eat some of the dishes anyway. After trying the dishes, Elizabeth imagines herself in her most glorious form, feeling peacefully comfortable. She reflects on how she forgot about the struggle for world domination between the Demon Queen and the legendary hero, and how she let go of everything, living carefree. This realization makes her see how insignificant she was and how she is now advancing and breaking through. She thinks about how, as a 3-star Demon Queen, she was surprisingly transported to a new level under the influence of 2 extreme stimuli, which led to another boost in her power through consuming the food. Elizabeth tells Leping not to pretend and asks him what he really wants. Leping questions her thoughts, explaining that he simply wants to research how a Demon Queen and a hero can coexist. However, Elizabeth reflects that Leping has finally revealed his true intentions. She realizes that he believes she is the only one fit to be the subject of his new research. He asks her to join him, promising to help her become stronger so that she can eventually defeat him. Leping asks if Elizabeth is okay and informs her that he will continue making delicious food for her. While still lost in thought, Elizabeth reflects on how a knight might be killed, but not broken, considering herself the queen. She imagines Leping mocking her and decides to let it go, not realizing she said this out loud. Leping feels disappointed by her words and wonders if she still plans to kill him. Elizabeth stands on the bed and tells Leping to listen. She agrees to his condition, clarifying that she's not doing it out of fear, but to pursue the highest level of strength. Leping reflects on Elizabeth's words and questions why she would feel intimidated by him, considering she is the Demon Queen with immense power and authority. He is puzzled by her fear, given her formidable status. Elizabeth, however, remains firm as she lays out her conditions. She insists that she will not compromise her dignity by living in the newbie village, a place she views as beneath her. She emphasizes that her status as the Demon Queen must be respected at all times. If her honor is violated, she threatens to destroy him, even if it means sacrificing everything she possesses. Leping listens carefully and, after considering her demands, agrees to her conditions. He acknowledges her concerns and proposes that they try to work together harmoniously. He suggests that despite their differences, they should make an effort to get along and find a way to coexist peacefully. Elizabeth stretches out her hands to Leping, warmly inviting him to come over if he wants to continue his research. She also adds that she would like to try any delicious food he might have, showing her eagerness to explore his culinary creations. A year later, Leping is chopping wood, lost in thought about his future plans. The situation in the newbie village has become increasingly complicated since the Demon Queen forcibly entered and shattered its protective barriers. This breach has caused time within the village to slowly align with the outside world, disrupting the village's once isolated and timeless existence. He reflects that the problem isn't just the synchronization of time, but the loss of the newbie village's concealment function. Without the protective barriers, the village is now completely exposed to the surrounding wilderness. This exposure has led to wild monsters frequently appearing at the village's edges. However, they cannot venture too close because of the Demon Queen's presence. He worries about what will become of the village and himself once she leaves. Meanwhile, Elizabeth questions Leping about why the food isn't ready yet, noting that it is already lunchtime. Leping reassures her that he is in the process of preparing it and will have it ready soon. Leping decides to seek protection from the Demon Queen, Elizabeth. Now looking somewhat chubby, Elizabeth expresses her weariness with watching his old recordings and questions if he can provide something new from his system. Leping informs her that the system has long since disappeared and is no longer available. He then invites her to come over, saying he has finished preparing lunch. Elizabeth asks Leping to give her a moment and then tries to use her power, only to find it much weaker than usual. She becomes worried and asks him about the type of poison in the chips he's been feeding her. She notices she feels more tired and weak with each bite and starts to suspect that he might be using the food to secretly poison her. Elizabeth fears he could be trying to weaken her and make her lose her grip on reality. Leping tells Elizabeth that the chips are high in calories and can cause fat to build up if eaten in large amounts. After hearing this, Elizabeth uses her deep-sea magic to convert the extra fat in her body into magical power. She then apologizes to Leping and explains that she has turned the fat into magic energy, using it to increase her strength. Leping is amazed by Elizabeth's new form and wonders if magic can really work like that. Elizabeth then asks if he feels very disappointed since she has tricked him again. Leping says that whatever she thinks is right and suggests they start eating. Excited about the meal, Elizabeth says she won't hold back because lunch tastes just right to her. Leping tells her to eat slowly and reassures her that he can make more food if she needs it. Elizabeth questions what Leping means by his words and starts to imagine that he wants her to gain weight so he can kill her more easily. This thought makes her worried, and she wonders if he is threatening her and treating her like a pig. She thinks about how she has made a lot of progress, breaking through into the newbie village over 10 years, and wonders if she now has the strength to challenge him. She considers asking for a fair fight, but her concerns quickly fade when Leping brings her favorite pudding for dessert. Seeing the delicious treat makes her excited and shifts her focus from her worries to enjoying the pudding. Leping reflects on how the Demon Queen isn't too difficult to manage, noting that with the right food, he can easily calm her down and keep the situation under control. Meanwhile, a man and his daughter are being chased by 3 human-like monsters. These monsters are using their terrifying abilities, which include powerful and destructive attacks, causing the father and daughter to run for their lives in a desperate attempt to escape. Evil's father tells her to wait while he holds the monsters back and asks her to run toward the town, assuring her it will be safe there. Evil refuses, saying she can't leave him behind to save herself. Her father pleads with her, reminding her of his promise to her mother that he would protect her no matter what. The monsters attack with ghost fire, and Evil's father steps forward to block it with his power. Evil, determined not to leave him, tells him she won't go no matter what. She draws her green natural arrow and shoots at the monsters. One of the monsters blocks Evil's attack with its own power. It then transforms its hand into a giant fist and punches her father in the face, sending him flying through the air and crashing to the ground. Evil watches in horror as her father is thrown. Evil's father tells her to leave and not to worry about him when she calls out his name. But Evil insists on staying and begs the monsters to spare her father's life, saying she will go back with them if they do. Meanwhile, the monsters transform into massive, terrifying creatures, making Evil think they are both about to die. Just as things seem hopeless, Lord Mammoth arrives and kills the monsters, saving Evil and her father. Ribbit, an immortal frog, informs his big brother that the danger has been cleared and asks how they should deal with the 2 harmless humans, Evil and her father. It turns out that Wankai, Leping's electronic dog, is Rabbit's big brother, and he tells Ribbit not to harm them. He says he will take them back to their master to decide what to do with them. Will the legendary hero and the demon queen succeed in challenging their fate and coexist without war? How will Evil and her father cope with their unexpected rescue by Lord Mammoth and Ribbit? Who could the master be? Leping. Discover the answers in the next chapter.